Once is white, once is black. All I want is to smoke crack. Welcome back to the Silver Screen Conference, everyone. I'm your host, Theo Scaven. Following with me today, as usual, are mon18.
So, did we just watch Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, the movie?
Shiroi.
Hi.
And Jova.
Hey, everybody.
Anyway, today's specimen is a bit weird, shall we say, because the Pokemon Company, in its wisdom, I suppose, decided to fracture this into two versions to reflect the game. So let's go in order. Shiri, what movie did you watch?
Pokemon the movie Black, Victini and Reshiram.
Which in Japanese is Pocket Monsters, Best Wishes, the movie, Victini and the White Hero Reshiram. Jova, what about you? What movie did you watch?
Well, I did not watch the movie with the White Savior, as the Japanese title so puts
Oh
it.
my god.
Instead, I watched Pokemon White, Victini, and Zekrom.
Which in Japanese is, Dej?
Pocket Monsters, Best Wishes, the movie, Victini, and the Black Hero, Zekrom.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand why the title was slightly changed, but there is also an extra bit. Outside of removal of the hero, which, as Jova mentioned, gives unfortunate implications to the titles, the company pulled a switcheroo. In the original versions, the color reflects the legendary that is associated with, white with Reshiram and black with Zekrom. In the Western titles, however, it basically encompasses both. The color refers to one of the two dragons, usually the one that appears later, while instead the name of a Pokemon refers to the other one. So basically it's a cute way to have both of them in the same title, just switch around.
So, because we didn't discuss this ahead of time, are we giving these two different rankings?
No. And while there are differences, differences in the plot, there is nothing that substantially will make me say one is better than the other. They're pretty much on the same level in their key factor. The Pokemon Company decided to split the movie in two to reflect what happens in the games, because, the games have been doing this since the very beginning. Two versions, slight differences here and there, more prominent starting with Gen 3 onward. So the movies did it as well. Mind you, the plot is virtually identical, in almost its entirety. What changes are the major scene at the beginning that serves to be an establishing shot of what the not even villain, one of the major character of the movie is gonna do, is just, taking the same thing but applied in different contexts. The coloring of a couple of Pokemon, one will be shiny and another will not be, and vice versa, depending on the version. And the presence of some specific Pokemons which do reflect the versions they were in, either black or white.
And specific flashbacks.
And just as to mention, in order to reflect the strict policy that the Pokemon Company had at the time about Gen 5 making you play only with Unova Pokemon until you beat the Elite Four, aside from Pikachu, all the Pokemon features in this movie are exclusively of Gen 5. Well, okay, also Meow for Team Rocket, but we'll get to that, don't worry.
It's a good thing we have Dej with us, because I have a bit of a confession. Black and White is probably the gen that I'm the least knowledgeable, since that was deep in the point where I was taking a break from Pokemon until I got back in with Gen 6. What I am aware of are a few things. Apparently the Black and White games are hailed as some of the greatest, while the anime is degraded as apparently some of the worst bits of the anime. And some weird stuff with Team Rocket, but I won't elaborate till we get to them in this.
I kind of wish that they kept the whole only Pokemon from this region until you beat the game shtick. Because I don't know, I feel like there was an interesting idea there.
Giving a sense of uniqueness, I suppose.
Yes, that's what gave Black and White its identity.
Well, while I understand that, at least I can tell you that for the games alone, that is what actually kept me away from that, because it was essentially the game imposing, a roadblock and telling me, that I had to work with limited tools, which sure, it might be appealing for someone, but when it comes to Pokemon, I respect the freedom of choice that the previous 4 gens did had, and suddenly, pulling a switcheroo around this was not something that, I appreciated, despite the fact that Gen 5 did had some Pokemon that I actually still liked.
Did you like Black and White too?
In terms of story, it was okay. It's kind of a weird thing with Gen 5. Again, I'll be as brief as possible to not divulge too much. I kind of wish that it were just one game fused together in terms of plot, because, for example, Getsis, or Gekis as it's called, has the best costume in Black and White 2, but has the best music theme in Black and White 1. And also arguably a best presence in story, Just to make an example. But he's not even in this. He's not even in this movie. Team Plasma is not even in this movie, despite featuring one of the legendaries that the end will actually recruit. That means being in Gen 5 in Unova and a lot of changes. Namely, Ash is finally traveling with new companions, meaning that Brock is finally gone from these movies. I think he will have a cameo in a later one, but other than that, this is also the moment where, if I recall correctly, Ash still uses the teleport process, and the third companion is the first gym leader of a region, again, similar to how Brock was. In this case, I keep forgetting his name. It's one of the
Dylan.
Cilantro. But
yeah, it's one of the 3 brothers that uses elemental monkeys, in Gen 5, and he's so forgettable.
In English, he's voiced by Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, Jova noticed that too.
Yep, Jason Griffith.
And in Japanese, he's Light Yagami.
Hilarious. But, wait, Dejo, do you want to mention also the other companion that Dawn, got replaced by?
Yes, Hi, do you like Misty? Now it's Dragon Misty.
It's a little girl of no major consequences called Iris. You might have heard of her because, I don't know, she becomes the actual champion in Black and White 2.
Fun fact, she becomes the champion in the anime, and it happens off-screen.
And we don't see how it happens. She gets immediately filtered by Sylvia. Hilarious.
Like, oh my god.
But again,
we'll get into it later.
We're divulging too much. So, audience, sit tight because the synopsis of this is gonna be a bit bumpy. Joe will have to do most of the lifting for his version of the movie, but I'll mention when necessary, major real changes that, are relevant to the story. So, when and where are we, Jova?
So, Black and White takes place in essentially Pokemon's take of America. At least that's, to my knowledge, the country that it most represents. Mm-hmm. So, for the version that I watched, we start off in a Grand Canyon, whereupon we see a herd of buffalo causing a stampede. But along comes a man named Damon, who manages to calm the stampede using, well, in this version, Reshiram. Yep, right out the gate we see that the legendary is under the command of a certain figure.
In the white version, it's slightly similar. It's just that Damien instead shows up in the equivalent of Alaska, I suppose, since it's still representing North America, helping a group of people that were trying to fishing something and instead steered a bunch of Arctics and a giant iceberg, using instead Zekrom to pulverize that.
Now, regardless of where it takes place, it seems that these people are all part of the same tribe, which, to my knowledge, is Pokemon's equivalent to the Native Americans, essentially. Remnants of a lost kingdom.
They're called the people of the earth. Interesting. Manaphy of Temple of the Sea, we had the people of the water. So where's the people of the sky?
Well, in the English dub,
apparently in the Japanese
the
version, they're called the people of the Veil.
Probably a more gentle way to actually put it, mostly because they originated in a veil.
Also, I was watching this in Japanese, as you can tell.
Again, this is one of those few occasions where the Japanese dub doesn't have too many differences with English script. Thank goodness.
The dealio is like, Damon here wants to unite the tribes, which we'll learn why later on. But let us go to the actual trio. Ash, Celine, and Iris, essentially, who, little do they know, are being spied on by Victini, the Pokemon of Victory. Once again, we have a mythical counterpart along with the legendary, essentially. Okay, so the deal with Victini is that it's a Pokemon that literally grants victory to those it favors. So basically, if Victini likes you, you're bound to win.
It's literally the cheat
sounds
code
overpowered,
Pokemon.
And it kind of is, which will be unfortunately one of the movie's issues, but that's for later. So what does it first do to show off his power? Well, Ash finds a pair of deerling, who are on a cliff for some reason.
Because they
last I checked,
food.
deerling... True, yeah, but I feel like that's not the right habitat for deerling Pokemon to be looking for food in, essentially.
I get the idea they wanted to use something as close to a goat Pokemon, but since Gogoat was not invented yet, or Gen 6, we had to resort to that.
Which is kind of ironic. Like, we got mountain goats over here, too. But I digress. Ash wants to help the deerling, but almost ends up falling himself. Now, one might ask why he doesn't use a Pokemon that can help them, and I can actually answer even this easily without even knowing about the black and white anime, is that clearly this is near the start where Ash's roster is weak.
Okay, hi. This is my black and white complaint anime. This is Ash's worst team to date. Somehow rivaling Johto.
It's worth noting that the Wikipedia tells that it has to be set before episode 39, so still relatively early on.
One of these days, Dedge, we gotta do a review of Black and White just so I can get what's the dealio with that anime, but I did kind of get an inkling of what may be the problem if that is seriously going to be Ash's roster for most of it, but sure, go on.
Basically, they wanted to do the whole start from the new beginning thing, like Gen 5 did. So, as a result, they dumbed down Ash, because this is the dumbest he's ever been. They heavily nerfed Pikachu hilariously. If you compare everything that happened from OG to Diamond and Pearl, and look at how Ash is now, and then it's like, this is not the same character at all. It's basically how Goku got stupid in Dragon Ball Super, but if he had the I can't fight syndrome that Gohan went through.
Which is funny because one thing I'm also aware of is that, ironically, Team Rocket were made much more competent for Black and White.
Yeah, and then their voice actors and Japanese fans didn't like that, so they changed it.
I mean, I couldn't tell from this movie. But
oh, don't worry, Shiroi. I'm sure Team Rocket is a great plan for this movie.
Long story short, thanks to some stuff going on with Hunter J in the last anime, Team Rocket actually succeeded in Giovanni's eyes enough for him to give them a promotion, and with that promotion, not only did they get these cool new black outfits, but they also became way more competent and actually could succeed a good portion of the time, which made them actual threats.
One other thing, the real reason why he get it is like, interesting. Somehow, whenever you're in a region, Team Aqua and Team Magma got dissolved. Team Galactic also got dissolved. Let me put you there so somehow Team Plasma can come out of hiding.
But back to the main plot, essentially. Victini gives Ash super strength. No, I'm not kidding. He gives him essentially a super jump, which lets Ash go into the Sword Castle. Yeah, I'm not kidding. There's actually a sword castle known as the Sword of the Veil.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'll just say this. When I first saw it, I thought, man, I wonder if they're kicking themselves for not saving this for like a Sword and Shield movie. Because, it feels like something. Though granted, if they had done it in Sword and Shield, they probably would have needed to make like a Shield counterpart, tower, village, or whatever. But regardless, they're in the castle. They make their way back up and out, just in time, essentially, for the festival that is going on in the village, which, what a shock, celebrates Victini
hold on,
as essentially
you forgot a very
champion.
important scene. When Ash gets reunited with his friends, in order to, express relief, Cillian offers to them a bunch of macaroons that he gets stored, because much like with Brock, Cillian is the team's chef, basically prepares everything. So, in order to, have a treat, they have a bunch of macaroons, which Victini seems to be taking a like, And it involves a couple of slapstick scenes, which involve Ash not understanding object permanence because he has a macaroon in his hands, the camera pans away, when he gets back it's gone, and Ash apparently did not felt Victini stealing it from his hand.
Which doesn't make any sense, really, but as we've established, apparently Black and White Ash was literally dumbed down, like, holy
Worth also noting that Victini appears visible for just a few seconds, and then becomes invisible at this point. And that in the cave system, while Ash was separated from the rest of the team, Victini actually showed him the way via means of dungeon crawling, because his eyes flash for a second, he gets a first view, seeing CGI about the way where to go, and then, he knows where to move, which, leads him outside of secret passage inside, fireplace.
As far as mythical or legendary Pokemon go, Victini seems to walk a tightrope between animalistic or personified, because, yes, he has a lot of mannerisms of an animal, incredibly nervous, but does eventually get coaxed with stuff like food. On the other hand, he clearly can understand English, can't speak it, mind you, so he has more excuses than Darkrai, but he can clearly understand English since, he understands basic instructions, he understands stuff that needs to be done and whatnot, and it clearly responds to, what people say here and there. So, part of me is left wondering why Victini acts certain ways that it does, but regardless, that is part of the great legendary mystery of Victini. But as I mentioned, the village celebrates Victini as their town champion. However, no one has seen Victini in decades, even potentially centuries.
Meanwhile, this dumbass kid and his friends saw him instantly.
Because Ash is so damn special.
Yes, you hate nice people.
Look, I want to be fair, okay? Ash does seem like the kid who is, in most ways, pure enough that a lot of legendaries would resonate with him. I mean, I guess at this point, the fact that he's taken as many championship losses as he has without becoming a villain shows how pure he is. So, all joking aside, though, he's the main protagonist, but at least I can buy that Victini likes him because he likes the cut of Ash's jib and has seen that Ash is, that good a guy, even helping out Pokemon in need. I do question why Victini apparently never deemed anyone else worthy, but hey, maybe nobody else just happened to come down the cliffside way that Ash and company were coming, and that's why Victini never turned his eye to the public. Oh wait, no, except there's that garden that it hangs out in. But regardless though, the town is celebrating, and it's in time for basically a town challenge, which involves one-on-one Pokemon battles. You lose a battle, you have to give up your necklace medal, essentially.
It has to be one-on-one without substitution.
Which I believe is kind of a tie-in to some of the challenges from the games, essentially. Along the way, they meet a woman named Juanita, who runs a Victini-themed souvenir stand with a Golurk, or Golug, as she calls it.
Golurk in one movie, in the black movie, is shiny, in the white movie is just regular color. Again, no real difference, it's just for the movie to be cute.
And I guess I'll comment on the movie differences now. I'll admit, when I first heard that, they're doing the different versions of a movie, my first mind went to, yeah, that's a cash grab gimmick to make more people see it, but I'll give them credit. It does seem like they at least put enough thought in it to replicate the games, if you really want to see both versions, you technically will be getting something out of it more than just the most minuscule things. Apparently they even reverse camera shots in the movies, go figure.
Yeah, all the perspectives are basically flipped. If a character is moving from the left to the right in one movie, it will be from the right to the left in the other. Again, just because, wanting to be cute.
So, again, credit where credit is due, it's a fine enough handled gimmick. I'm guessing the reason they stopped doing it is because God help them if they were counting each movie as its own separate box office. I get the feeling that didn't get enough people, especially since it only really came out in theaters over in Japan, to the theaters, essentially, since
No,
by
it
this
came out in
point...
theaters in the US.
Yeah,
did it
it was a
now?
very limited release, but it was present. If anything, it was actually, returned to form because Pokemon Heroes had been the last one with a theatrical release. Mind you, again, this was still limited, so just a few days, basically, and did receive an airing on Cartoon Network almost a year later. Although from what Bulbapedia tells me, the Cartoon Network version had scenes trimmed down, not for censorship purpose, but to make, the cut of a movie short enough to be aired, which is
Yeah,
bullshit.
to fit
Okay,
into a
so,
channel
Tio,
streaming block.
The whole limited release thing for Pokemon movies, that's actually really common with a lot of anime movies here.
I was actually wondering,
the first... The My Hero Academia movies, I don't know about the last one, but it's like, yeah, they're only available for a weekend. Gee, thanks.
So after this movie, did they consistently give them theatrical
That I
releases
do
over
not
in
know.
America?
Again, we'll check out as we go on.
Or someone will
All right.
comment on this one.
So, how do our heroes respectively do in the fights?
Well, Iris and Seelin immediately get bonked out, though, to their fair, they send out relatively weak Pokemon picks,
Iris
essentially.
is kind of an idiot because she fights an Embor and she starts using her Emolga, which, like, come on, miss. But to be fair, it feels like she's managing to, hold her up, on her own. But Emolga basically makes her stumble a bit. Basically, Iris has this gimmick where she stores her Pokeballs inside her sleeves, because, giant dress. So her stumbling makes her accidentally release her Excadrill, which would have been a much better Pokemon to use, by the way.
No, actually, it used Volt Switch.
Oh, that's what the movie is? Okay.
Yeah.
The point is that Excadrill would have been a much better switch, move Pokemon to use anyway, but because it counts as a switch, Iris gets disqualified. Cillian gets his actual stupid, grass monkey literally nuked by a Hydreigon. Hilarious.
This guy is supposed to be a gym leader in the games,
to be
just
fair, the
remind
first
you.
gym leader, but still, holy shit, at least Brock and Misty did manage to help their own.
So yeah, obviously the two side characters get taken out like chumps. Ash, however, is doing pretty good, staying in the fight here, and he even uses a Scraggy, which, to my knowledge, from what Tio's told me, wasn't really much a fighter at this point in the anime.
The Scraggy apparently is still in his, early phase, and Ash explicitly tells him, just watch, don't fight for now, just watch how I perform so you can actually learn a thing or two in the meantime.
Which is something that he does do whenever he has, like, a new Pokemon or a baby one.
Mm-hmm.
That cat.
In fact,
Ash manages to win thanks to Pikachu managing to kill Serperior, thanks to a Thunder attack, which should not be not very effective against a Grass type. But again, this is not the first time Pikachu's Thunder has been super effective against other things. So
it's not even a super effective thing. It's just Pikachu is built different. We've established this.
He's just bulking.
Although I'm sure this is to make up to people who got mad about the Snivy thing. No, sorry.
That's also the thing that Snivy is actually in the poster for these movies, but he's not even in this movie as far as I've seen.
Well, I'm talking about Trip Snivy, not Ash's.
Oh, sure. It's just that it's still very weird. Thing that I wanted to also mention at one point.
We didn't. Okay, I'm gonna give you a fun fact about Ash's starters Pokemon right now.
They suck. I can't believe that.
He never evolves them fully.
Besides that, but in terms of their personalities, it's just his previous Pokemon again. His Oshawott is just Don's Piplup. It's like, we just spent 4 years with Piplup. Why are you doing that again?
The coolest thing I remember is that Charizard even came back for Black and White.
His Tepig, which later evolves into Pignite, it's just the Chimchar thing again. Again, we spent 4 years with the abusive trainer treating the Firestar like crap, and Ash catches it. It's like, no one was buying it.
Again,
and Snivy is just Sort of Chikorita again, sort of.
Oh god, extremely attachment
Wait,
issues.
so it has a crush on Ash?
Not really. It's fond of him,
God.
but it doesn't have a crush.
But Deds, need I remind you, they literally brought back Charizard to Ash's party for Black.
Because they needed views. They fucked up so hard with this anime.
Speaking of fucking up, the fights do go on until only a few trainers remain, and hilariously for it to just represent, how so little neurons those Ash has in his, cranial capacity. When he has to face Samurott, he sends out his Tepig.
To be fair, he didn't know it was going to be a samurai. It was they threw at the same time.
And as you can imagine, again, it gets to the point where even the fucking Samurott laughs in the face of the attack that the Tepig tries to use the Ember against him. But
in comes Victini, wherein we see its main true power, granting victory no matter the odds. Which, hey, maybe that's the reason Pikachu has been winning. Victini's been invisibly following Ash the entire time.
At least this movie justifies the victory with this one, because if it was any other episode, I would be calling foul. So it's like,
but would you be surprised?
Okay,
I mean,
sure,
okay,
fine.
he didn't know of it.
Look, it will never be as bad as Black and White gym matches in this show are.
It really does sound like we could make like an entire season's worth just riffing on Black and White, but I digress though. Tepig wins the battle essentially. Mm-hmm. So that just leaves one more match for us to take care of. Carlita, who happens to be the daughter of Juanita, and she has a hydrogen. A hydrug.
In the white movie,
a hydrogon.
The hydrogon is shiny. In the black movie, is not. Again, just to be cute.
Now, unlike the last battle, Ash actually knows that's what she's coming at him with. So, of course, he sends his most powerful Pokemon, Pikachu. No, he sends Scraggy off against it.
To be fair, now there is an actual type advantage because Scraggy is fighting type, while, Hydreigon is Dragon Dark. So, ideally it could work. The problem is that Ash decides to have him use Headbutt, a normal type move.
I don't think Scraggy at that point knew any fighting moves because it just hatched.
Which is why I wonder, why would you send what is essentially a baby against a dragon type? Like,
he believes in his Pokemon.
No, he was like, Scraggy wants to fight. I was like, okay, sure, I'll give it experience. Let's go.
It's like, look, dragon types, since the first gen, are known as like some of the hyper Pokemon. Like, they are typically the beat sticks that only a few types of Pokemon can be used against. That's sort of why fairy types were made essentially as the nuke to counter dragon types. Obviously, Scraggy doesn't start off doing the best against a flipping dragon type using just Headbutt, but then Victini shows up. And Carlita actually spots it. See, she was actually doing this battle partially as a test, since she found it a little suspicious that some of Ash's matches went just a little too conveniently. And her suspicions are proven right when she sees Victini. That being said, she is actually chill about losing and doesn't even pull the, oh, you didn't deserve it on him. Like,
she just wants to confirm. It's like, okay, yeah, Victini was there.
However, I don't know if any of you three noticed, I technically won the entire, competition, but he won nothing. Like, there is no actual prize.
Shoot,
I could swear there was something actually, put on the prize for winning.
I
guess he gets to be friends with, the higher-ups, I guess that counts.
Hey, he won. He won the same thing he won at the Orange Islands. Nothing.
Too soon. Wow.
I'm joking. The Orange Islands was good. I'm tired.
More pressing matter because as mentioned, Victini reveals himself again, so we need to test if he actually can befriend the little critter.
So basically, coax him with some macaroons, because yes, apparently Victini does sell out well for food. All joking aside, Victini seems to hit it off well with Ash, essentially.
And then Ash ruins
mind,
things by, being overly enthusiastic, and Pikachu has to save the day by trying to, perform more diplomacy. So thank goodness at least things are saved on that front.
Basically, Ash and Victini seem to be hitting it off well, but Ash is basically pulling Victini along, but then Victini gets clobbered by a magical barrier. No, I'm not kidding. Like, Ash basically goes through, but it's a barrier invisible to most people that specifically keeps Victini in, which, kind of sucks. And Victini does not take well to this, since I think it thinks that Ash was intentionally trying to harm it because it runs off, essentially.
Or to leave him, basically. Basically, again, you can easily interpret that as his PTSD from being trapped there for 1,000 years. Yes, it's been that long for the poor fucker,
This will lead into a bit of my confusion with how Victini acts, because keep in mind, Victini can clearly understand English. And Ash just tried to reassure it at several points. And what coaxes it out, essentially, is, well, something that more or less could have been confirmed if it just believed him. But I digress. Like Tio said, Pikachu thankfully acts as a good diplomat when they go after Victini and try to get it to reveal itself back at the garden, essentially. Which they're led to by more Gen 5 Pokemon. Yeah, there are a few shots here that are just made to go, look at all the cool Pokemon you can get from Gen 5.
Also, the thing that you noticed while we were watching the movie, Jova, while Ash and Victini and the others are actually, going around, because we have a brief scene of them just, bonding of that, and the fact that Carita is actually, happy to finally see Victini also for herself for the first time. They pass through the entire city, and as you noticed, nobody is around in the street or, moving outside of a window, so nobody is there to notice the Pokemon that this city is basically the same patron of, and that has been absent for 1,000 years and nobody has seen. What a fucking coincidence.
That's right! That's right, like there's a whole sequence of them with Victini who's visible, going through the village, and yes, conveniently no other villagers saw it.
It's a Kingdom Hearts world. The people are there and not at the same time.
It's like, wait, we're not the main characters in this. It doesn't matter.
Also, but anyway, once Victini has revealed itself, we come across a character from earlier. Damon's back, and he reveals himself to be Juanita's son and Carlita's brother, essentially. It is here where it is revealed that he has also been corresponding with the mayor of the town. Oh yeah, right, there's a mayor of this particular village. He has
a very unique English voice actor. I actually don't know who that is. I'll check in the meantime.
Basically, though, Damon reveals his true plans, essentially. He wants to, borrow Victini's power to do a actually wholesome act. He wants to essentially reignite the Kingdom of the Vale, essentially. Like I said, these people appear to be an allegory for the Native Americans, in which case their desecrated home is the Kingdom of the Vale. As it turns out, what he was doing earlier at the start of the movie was convening with the tribes, essentially. Now, it's a bit different with each tribe, essentially, but they all do eventually come together after he proves himself with the legendary, essentially, You have either the tribe's chief of the canyon with his daughter, or the chieftain in the ice area with her son, essentially. Either way, they're all here and together.
Also, another moment that you skipped, Jovan, just to set in, particularly what's going to be an obvious plot point later, at the pond, there's this very emotional scene where Ash wants to reconnect with Victini, and we don't know if he's actually going to do it, but then it happens thanks to, Ash being a bit clumsy. Apparently, he did not look up where he was stepping his fucking feet. So it's all good, fun, and hilarious and everything. Carlita says, oh, this is, so happy to see Victini. And then immediately after, Damien says, in the most sinister way you can imagine, I must use Victini's power. He's just
And
okay.
just walks off. Like,
And the
he
thing
says
is,
that, and then
This
just
world
stops.
is important. Isn't perfect.
And the thing is, he's actually not too villainous. Oh, mind you, he kind of fulfills the role of antagonist, but
Hi, Butler. How you doing?
But I think this is like the first time, well, okay, aside from Pokemon Free, but that's a very special case. But this is like the first time we get someone who legit just wants the most wholesome thing to revive an old forgotten land, essentially.
Butler. He was a villain either.
I still think what Jova means resonates a bit more true, that Damian has a much more noble goal. But you need to understand, for the audience, you need to understand, thanks to what else? A lore dump, which the mayor actually provides via CGI, unfortunately, diorama book that he actually, moves from time to time. So what is another thing that happened in the past of this world, Jova, among all the other prophecies?
Long ago, thousands of years ago to be exact, there was a plague that threatened the land. So, an old king, King Dr. Light,
Yeah, no, really, he looks like Dr. Light.
asked for Victini to aid him in, I kid you not, picking up the entire kingdom from a mountain to the point where the building was connected to the rock to shape perfectly a sword and move it away. It's literally Patrick Star's plan from SpongeBob to pick up the kingdom and move it over there.
It's worth noting that it's done via, a connected way. Essentially, Victini acts as a power boost on a convenient platform, which power-ups a fuck ton of, I forgot the name, the Cell Pokemon, Psychic Pokemon, which evolves eventually into
I think it was
Rinkulus.
Solosis.
Yeah, I think. Basically, there's a fuck ton in the basement. Them getting powered up by Victini allows them to use, basically, telekinesis power to lift up the entire building. It's a neat trick.
Okay, apparently it was Solosis and Duishan, basically all part of the Reniculus evolution chain, basically.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
Funnily enough. But,
much like in the movie La Puta Castle in the Sky, this castle literally got lifted and actually deposited itself on another place. Mostly because
that's not the only Ghibli reference. That's a plane that the mayor has. It's like, Jesus Christ, we were just watching that movie on the third movie.
Also, worth noting is that one of the reasons why the thing got corrupted is because the king had two sons. I think they're labeled as twins, even if it's not specifically mentioned. One with white hair and one other with black hair, each of them in control of a legendary dragon, Reshiram and Zekrom. And because, siblings know what to do best is to quarrel with each other eventually, they caused civil war, which disrupted the live stream. No, really, they call it the Dragon Force, but it really is the live stream, which, again, it's yet another thing that was actually part of this world, that piles up to all the other prophecies and, mystical things happening at the same time in the past. In this case, the Dragon Force getting corrupted, and Dr. Light deciding to yeet the castle on top of a mountain in order to seal it up.
Where was Rayquaza to quash this?
He was busy, kicking meteorites and being very, very angry.
So are we gonna watch the Mega Evolution specials just so Jova can have his answer to where Rayquaza is?
We'll see.
But yes, that is what happened. Now, getting a bit ahead of the plot, but apparently this also meant that what happened was the Sword of the Veil acts as kind of a buffer plug to the corrupted energy, basically. Which means, moving it out might not be the best idea. But I'm sure nothing bad could happen from that whatsoever.
Also, worth noting is that Damian's entire motivation for doing this plan, which again, at this stage, despite that one moment of ominousness, you have no reason to see it as an evil plan of sorts, but actually as a noble goal. Why was he wants to do it? when he was a child, him and his mother visited the ruin of the Vale Kingdom, and the mother said it would be nice if the kingdom actually was restored. And Damien was like, yeah, I promise you I will fix that. And apparently he never let go, so we have a bit of a Freudian, thing going.
Yeah, allegory for, recovery of Native American land and all that. Granted, the Native Americans don't, last I checked, don't have, like, a giant underground castle that could completely desecrate the entirety of the surface area of North America.
Again, it's also worth noting that the people of the Vale are basically, their culture is structured in a way to not, being offensive to real-life culture, even if parallels are actually, pretty clear. It manages to be its own thing and oh yes, this is clearly, something similar to that, without having to, plagiarize, parodying, or offend, said other cultures. It's actually surprisingly tasteful, especially for a Japanese product.
So yeah, not too long after, Damon is ready to put his plans into action. Yeah, as far as I recall, not much happens in between then or where the real stuff gets going, which I'll admit, when I was first watching the movie with Tio, I kind of noticed that the conflict doesn't really kick up until
the only other major thing to mention is that, again, Damien mentions that after a bit of soul searching, he contacted the mayor. They went to explore spelunking into the parts of the cave under the castle, and Damien find one of the dragons. Depending on the movie that you're watching, it's either Zekrom or Reshiram, And using that, went ahead and reunited the people in the Vale, like, Jova mentioned. But again, it's just so the party knows that either Zekrom or Reshiram is, around and has forged a covenant. Not became, directly tamed by a Pokeball, it's just a matter of cooperating for saving the goal, because the dragons are still tied to the kingdom, and at the end of the day, they do want the kingdom to be restored. So, there is that.
I gotta say, I found it refreshing, though, that for once the two brothers from the legend actually reconciled and, atoned for their stuff instead of just killing each other. It's like, typically, it's usually they end up destroying themselves, but no, they got a second chance and they decided, yeah, we obviously don't deserve this power, let's lock it away. But not try and destroy it since...
Also, it costed them their father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Light, I guess from the energy use died, while the castle deposited itself, so there is that.
Yeah, Tio noted it's not entirely clear how exactly he died from it. Best I can wager is, from the overdose. This will tie a bit into Victini's backstory and I guess why Victini is afraid to do stuff, essentially, because, again, getting a bit ahead of myself, let's just say Victini arguably could solve the whole plot. Since, let's remember, Victini's thing is granting victory to those it favors, essentially. Now, to be fair, apparently the movie does try and elaborate and say that it's not just as simple as Victini says you win and you win. Even though that's kind of how the movie acts half the time, but the idea is that Victini works as more like a luck booster or a favorability booster of sorts, essentially.
It's kind of like with Domino in the Marvel comics, if you ever read, her line.
The idea is like if someone wields that luck well enough, they'll succeed. Now, while I raise the issue that it feels inconsistent is, well, that would be getting even more ahead, but it does feel like sometimes the plot will go, well, actually, that's how his powers work. No, this is how they work instead, essentially. So as for there to, still be a plot, since, let's be honest, if Victini was actually smart enough, the movie probably would have been over by, the start of it. But I digress. Damien puts his plans into action, essentially. Unfortunately, this involves putting Victini into a clearly big amount of pain, which it does not like. Basically, he has his Reniculus put Victini to a device which will allow him to power the castle with all of Reniculus's evolution line as the king did before.
And a sigil at the top as the navigator, basically. Worth noting also that Damian's signature Pokemon changes also from different versions. In the White movie, as Jova said, is a Reniculus. In the Black movie, instead is a Gotitiel. Again, doesn't change mass, psychic type, that's all you need to know.
I kind of find it a bit more fitting that he uses a Reniculus, since Reniculus is part of the evolution line that he's literally using to fuel the castle.
It does fit more.
Yeah.
Whereas Gothitelle, I guess we technically did see a Gothitelle near the start of the movie.
It was instead a Gotita and a Gotita and a Kotorita, mostly because, again, Gen 5 showcasing. Again, apparently it's part of the Pokemons that were actually available for that specific game. I don't remember the major difference. Anyway, time to move the castle. No, really, again.
And the thing is, technically, what he's doing isn't entirely wrong, because even though he is the antagonist at this point in the plot, technically, thanks to Damon's actions, things will technically have a net gain of being better than they were before.
No, really, at this point, the only actual being that is actually, getting the worst deal out of this is unfortunately Victini. Which, yes, again, it is the source of conflict and makes Damian's actions villainous, but compared to the motherfuckers we've seen in previous movies, this is actually one of the few cases where you can genuinely sympathize with the guy.
Like, here's the thing. It feels like the plot could have been solved if he had actually just asked Victini nicely. Now, granted, Victini has apparently reason to believe that things will not end well for it, since, according to the flashback, the king kind of seems to be encouraging Victini to conserve its power, and I guess due to the energy thing that killed the king.
It also mentions that if the castle moves again, the Dragon Force will once again be destabilized and will not work, which is in very quick succession what actually starts happening.
Unfortunately, Damon doesn't notice because, well, the clouds are literally covering. No, I'm not kidding. The minute he sees that it's going bad, he actually does try to call the plan off. But there is one thing me and Tio noted, that yes, while he should not be doing to Victini what he was doing, when the team notice that stuff is going wrong, the first thing they try to do is remove Victini, the power source keeping the castle up in the sky, out.
While the castle is still up in the air. I understand the sense of urgency to save your friend, Ash, but, you might want to wait until you're not, in a danger of actually crashing on the ground. Sure. It's worth noting that, the people still on the castle, Juanita, her daughter, and the mayor, do possess either vehicles, like the plane, or Pokemon like Golurk and Hydreigon, which can potentially fly everyone to safety if needed be. It's just that, it feels like nobody's actually thinking in this plan again.
Nah, he's just gonna run at it.
It's that's
how a lot of people are nowadays, or have been portrayed in history. So,
just
yes, Ash did indeed body check the ancient portals that are keeping Victini in place. Shockingly, it did not work. Imagine. Also, I just want to note that they pulled the Sword of the Veil out of the mountain. And let's just hope that none of the people in the village would be affected by the avalanche shifting.
Yeah, like a potential, earth movement, like an earthquake, Thankfully, again, no collateral damage. Here we get actually...
Keep in mind, we never see them again afterwards.
No, we do get a couple of minor shots of the people, watching as things are going on. But most of the shots that we'll get later are of the Dragon Force consuming the territory and the Pokemon running away. Also, here we get to one of my biggest problems with the movie. Because, Ash's plan spectacularly failed, again, I'm shocked, he wakes up after getting the flashback of Dr. Light dying, and Damien has locked everyone in basically the same basement that Ash, emerged from the fireplace. Ash communicates what he saw to everyone, so Juanita reasons that the only other way to contrast Damien, since he does possess one of the dragons, Zekrom or Reshiram, depending on the movie you're watching, is to get the other one, which honestly makes sense. And when you think about it, the conflict in the past was between two siblings. Sure, they were both male siblings, but you can tell the kind of conflict that they have. It was a family squabble and everything. So, you would think that Juanita's daughter would be the ideal candidate to go against her brother because, proper siblings and, she has demonstrated to care about Victini. No, it has to be Ash, because of course it has to be Ash, the one that has to befriend the other fucking dragon.
Did Ash steal your food when you were a kid?
I already mentioned time and time again, Dej, I am so sick and tired of us just stumbling into lives of these people, and acting as a literal savior for their problems when these stories are literally built for the original characters to solve the problems.
I don't think he's acting as a savior. This is more of a, I want to help. Because I'm going to throw in a hotter take. I think Iris should have been the one to be chosen by Zekrom.
Because dragons and everything.
I actually said that too, because she's the dragon.
Yeah, her whole gimmick is that she can read the emotions of dragon Pokemon, and no other adaptation has ever let her, oh yeah, I should do something. She has no agency. And that
the movie doesn't
baffles
indicate
me.
this very much, so if you didn't tell me, I'd have no idea.
The closest we get is that she's really squeezed at the presence of the Hydreigon, but that's kind of it. My point being is that the conflict seems to be built more locally, but instead it's Ash the one that has to go. It just feels a step back compared to both the Zoroark movie and the Arceus one, where, sure, Ash's presence was still pivotal for the plot, but you can tell that it was scaled down so that the actual, major characters of the movie could solve their own problems, while instead in these we're back to stuff like, Giratina, for example, or Darkrai.
Yeah, so basically Ash awakens the corresponding legendary, which inspires it to ask what is his wish or his ideal, essentially.
The truth or ideal.
I got the version
It doesn't really matter which one, because one dragon is tied to the other. Again, TV Tropes tells me that the white version seems to be the more close to a canon one, because if I recall correctly, the black and white series still had the whole thing about Anne befriending Zekrom, if I recall correctly. Dej?
It's weird because it felt like they were building up Ash to get Zekrom in the anime because that's how it started. It's also the Zekrom just randomly appears to nerf Pikachu for no reason, and that plot point just never got resolved.
Lovely, but again, it's irrelevant. That's the point of that.
I kind of do prefer the version of Zekrom being the one to help save the day. And no, that's not just because of the white savior thing, but also because the guy seems to be that Zekrom, on first appearance, is the darker and more chaotic looking of the dragons. So I do like the irony that, in this case, it would be the one that does help save the day. Now, to be fair, it does seem like the dragons are mainly influenced by who awakens them. However, as is shown later on, they are capable of disobeying their supposed masters if they deem that what they are doing is wrong, essentially. So to Reshiram's credit in the white version, while he's technically antagonistic, he, as far as he knows, is doing nothing that is, too against what ought to be. The problem is, as Zekrom does show him later on, by pulling the veil out, not only have they, let the corruption come back, but it's now worse than ever. And as a result, it will destroy the entire world. Not just the region, the world.
Mm-hmm.
Which means there's
basically the region.
Yeah. It's just that they're trying to build up as yet another world-ending catastrophe, because again, each region needs to have their own, cool, apocalyptic versions of things.
So anyway, we get a cool legendary fight. The legendary that Ash awakens lets the legendary that Damon awakens know what's going on, essentially, and in turn, Damon's legendary turns on him and helps free Victini. All well and good. This also allows them to blow apart the clouds to show Damon what's happening. And to Damon's credit, the minute he notices the problem, he does try to turn the castle around. Shame that Victini is out of the power source, so yeah, we're kind of boned. Now that being said, the good news is that the castle's going to set down on itself. And apparently as long as they plug it back in, it can be good. Like, it doesn't even apparently have to be in its original spot. They can just plug it back in anywhere. Problem is that the corruption apparently has a mind of its own and rejects the sword. How much so? To the point where it sends it up to space.
Well, no, it's more a thing that the mayor and Damien concoct a plan to ask Zekrom and Reshiram to converge the Dragon Force to the sword acting as a conduit. It will absorb it, then go into space, and then release it up into space. Because I guess fuck the Oxys, I guess.
Also, even Damon's like, okay, get out of here. But regardless, what happens is, like, Ash gets stuck on the castle with Damon.
Because he doesn't want to leave Victini, and the barrier is still a thing. If anything, it gets closed in. The fucking CGI geometrical shape gets more ominous as they close in and in, like a Fortnite, danger zone.
But yeah, so we're in space. Thankfully, apparently the castle provides an atmosphere, so Ash, doesn't immediately die.
Nor he actually explodes like a balloon for the decompression of, the pressure. Thank God.
That being said, he still is dying, which makes this his fourth time having died in one of these movies? Jesus Christ.
I don't think he tried. No, he doesn't try to body check the barrier, but I get the idea that if he had enough strength, he would have tried.
Even more surprising, though, is that Damon shows up on Golog outside. And this is where they're definitely in space, yet somehow Damon seems to be in better shape than Ash, who at least has the safety as the kingdom as an excuse. Ash is pretty much dying, much to Pikachu and Victini's horror. So this finally spurs...
Oh no, so terrible.
Well... in comes Victini to save the day, and yes, here's what the movie has been building up to. Apparently, Victini just needed to believe in himself enough to the point where not only can he break the barrier, but he can provide the castle all the power it needs.
Basically, what happens is that again, the geometrical shape had basically closed up. It's basically a very tight, almost circle. What Victini does is to activate his flame power and fly on top at basically the convergence point with enough power sufficient to actually break the seal around and break the geometrical shape. I would like to note something that no other Pokemon had managed to do it. Golurk had tried to do it, even separate physically. Both Dragons had tried to blast things off, even Pikachu had tried to give it a chance. Nobody had managed to do it, but only Victini did. And this is my other big problem with the movie, because it basically boils down to tell me that, Victini just needed to believe himself hard enough to actually escape his prison, which... on paper, I get it, the idea that he would need to find the courage to believe in himself, and he did not need the help of someone else, which I will also take over Ash actually body-checking the structure and winning. I will take that, obviously. It's just that it breaks a bit my suspension of disbelief that in 1,000 years Victini never found anyone that could fit the category, nor actually tried to break the barrier himself. It just feels...
and this is also...
It feels to me something that should have had either a shorter time span or telling that he tried a couple of times and it did not work.
This also comes back to my point about how Victini can understand English, since the king more or less told him how stuff works, essentially, and he could clearly understand him. So Victini knew. He knew he could have done this. Now granted, to the movie's credit, Victini apparently dies because of this, so maybe that was the Pokemon's main fear, but I don't know. It feels a little weak, which, okay. I want to be fair to the movie. It wasn't their idea for Victini to be the victory Pokemon. Like, that was a gimmick of the Pokemon made for the game, to my knowledge. So they were gonna have to find some way to work with it. And I get it. A Pokemon that is famous for granting victory is a bit hard to write around, admittedly. However, the thing about this is, get this, as a result, the castle gets to land where Damon wanted to land it. Like,
very
even if his
too.
plans were technically wrong, Damon technically succeeded in his goal, which means we could have just let him finish landing with Victini. Sure, yes, it was bad that he was using Victini as a power source, but this technically means that if we had just let Damon do his plan, there probably wouldn't be as much conflict.
Again, it's a bit similar to the same problem with first Indiana Jones movie, where the main protagonist doing anything is inconsequential because in that case the villain gets themselves killed.
It really is kind of silly in hindsight. And keep in mind, as a net gain, now the barrier is gone, since I guess the kingdom doesn't need it anymore. Originally, the barrier was made as a way to keep the curse out, but unfortunately that was keeping Victini in, but now the barrier is no longer needed.
So Victini can actually do something that we did not mention, and I promise that Ash has told him, and potentially, if he'd still be alive, visit the ocean.
Unfortunately, Victini is no more.
Just like
dead.
Darkrai.
And then okay, to give him credit, at least they don't wait till the very tail end.
And also, yes, I would argue they did a better, dead Pokemon sequence attached to food than the fucking berry scene with Celebi in Forever. Like, again, despite my complaints about this movie, this is actually much more tasteful way of handling, a mythical Pokemon that they did.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, in spite of my issues with Victini, he is definitely still one of the much better handled mythical Pokemon of these movies, essentially. But yes, to probably no one's surprise, Victini is alive. But, it's all well and good. Since now the barrier is gone, Victini can go wherever. Heck, even the legendaries get to stay awakened, since, they're being put to good use. Again, while Damon was technically the antagonist, when you get down to it, his plans allowed for a net gain of improvement for everyone. So,
hooray.
Thanks, Damon.
And yeah, basically the movie is basically over. The epilogue happens in the credits with Ash and the others saying goodbye to everyone and reprising their journey. But Juba, aren't we forgetting of someone? Aside from that mentioning in the beginning, I don't think we mentioned Team Rocket a single time in this recap. How could this be?
It's funny because they have technically been chasing after them. There's even a point where they're hanging on the side of the flying castle, which leads me to wonder how they did not suffocate.
It genuinely feels to me there was a sequence
whatsoever.
that was planned in pre-production, but was eventually cut away because we do get them.
They did nothing.
We do get them meeting Victini accidentally because Victini eats like a pineapple or a fruit that Jess is eating. So they do know that he's there. Then they realize that Ash and the others have met. So we stalk them while on their way to the garden, and then they drop out of the movie until the castle starts moving, which also involves the passage of one night and a part of a day. And what the fuck did we do in the meantime? I'm sorry. Like, it generally feels like something was missing. And then we just see them hanging a bit on the castle, and at the very end, like Jova said, they don't even get blasted. They just said, we're alive. The end. No, really.
Honestly,
very last that we got is in the credits of them with the black suit looking at Ash and his companions as we move on.
Honestly, I feel like there was a missed opportunity to actually let them be the antagonists of them. Like,
also,
let Damon's plan actually be a good plan, but then Team Rocket steal Victini and cause some chaos and whatnot,
Also, I don't know about it because I haven't seen it yet, but just to prepare ourselves psychologically for the next movie, Bulbapedia tells me that in the next movie, in Kyurem and the Sword of Justice, Team Rocket is basically labeled as just a cameo. So I have no idea how
and
worse
this
it
wasn't
can get.
just a cameo?
I have no idea how worse it can get. But whatever. Movie's over. The peace in the world is restored. The birds are singing. Isn't it beautiful? So, it's time for the usual awards, I guess. Dedger, what is the first one?
The Go Award. No, viewer, that I know that you've been making a big deal about. I am not changing it. It's the Go Award.
Fan who doesn't like the change.
Yes.
Bad comments, Jova. Anyway, point is worst character. Who wants to start? Okay, outside of collectively, agreeing that Team Rocket, as we mentioned, is completely wasted and sucks in this movie in general. Is there anything that any of us want to add on the matter? Not for Team Rocket, having another pick in general.
Can I be honest? I kind of feel like there weren't really any bad characters.
I do have my own pick, but I'm kind of a broken record, so I want to save myself for later. What about you, Shiroi?
I don't know, because, okay, there aren't any bad characters. I didn't hate anyone in this movie, so I feel a bit mean, I guess, but
Go on.
if I can even remember his name. Is it
Damon?
Silen?
Silen, the green hair guy.
Silen.
Oh, Silen.
Silen, okay. Yeah, he just kind of, like, his design is quirky and all that, but he just kind of does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of dead air.
He makes the background, Shiroi.
Shiroi, I hate to tell you this. That's kind of how he is in the show.
Oh, okay.
He has his moments, but it's like, man, you replace Brock, you kind of have a lot of expectations to live up to.
Feel and all. What about you, Jonah?
The easy one would be Team Rocket, and mind you, that's not even because they're bad, it's just they are practically non-existent in character roles, but if I were not allowed to go Team Rocket, I guess I'd say Iris, and again, not because she's bad, just because she really doesn't get to do much, especially in a movie that centers around flipping dragon legendaries.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a behind-the-scenes thing.
Go on.
If Go never existed, I would have eventually called this the Iris Award.
You hate Iris?
I hated her, but then events happened. Like, dang it.
Okay, I'll admit, maybe it's because I didn't really get to experience Black and White in real time like a lot of people did, but I never really got the hatred for Iris. If anything, I found her to be kind of something of an interesting foiled Ash. Lord knows I found her more interesting than Silen.
Anyway, I guess that's it for you, Dedger.
No. Iris isn't my worst character. The worst character to me, and this is going to be extremely petty, Oshawott.
Yeah, fair enough.
No.
Alright,
100%, he is, to me, Ash's worst Pokemon.
Okay.
Oh god, I completely forgot Oshawott was even in this movie.
He has a very great moment where he fights the Emboar that, managed to win against Iris. And to be fair, there is the type advantage. In this case, Oshawott wins fairly.
I just hate his Oshawott, that's it.
Okay, that leaves me.
I'm curious, does his Oshawott have the same thing that Dawn's Piplup had going for it?
Yes, except it's worse because this is supposed to be the battler, not the contestant.
Does it at least evolve?
Oh, no.
No! There was this weird unspoken rule that none of Ash's water Pokemon were allowed to evolve until Greninja happened. Like, after Kingler, none of his water Pokemon evolved.
Anyway, that leaves me for the worst character, and I'm a broken record. Dedge, what am I thinking?
I wonder
that you need to be hugged.
That's
that you need.
That's nice for your appreciation, but that's not what I asked.
You're thinking of how much therapy is?
All right, let me just mention. Anyway,
Ash, you forgive Ash.
Yeah. Again, broken record and everything, but holy shit, talk about our aggression. Ash is once again back in his full force of Gary Stew, that he inserts himself into the story and basically not even for his own will this time around, admittedly. It's not like in Arceus, where he jumps at the basic opportunity to potentially be, or Giratina for that matter. So at the very least, in this case, it's more like the other characters who clobber him, in the proper role. But once again, he basically violently interjects with the main conflict of the characters instead of being an active part of that while letting the main players play their role. His relation with Victini is actually very more understandable, and I wish the movie focused a bit more just on that. But him actually taking control of the other dragon to go directly against Damian is a genuine step back, and his general overall stupidity carried from the anime season is another huge detractor. So yes, I'll take that.
Ironically, he's not even stupid. He's not even as stupid in this movie compared to how he is to the rest of the series.
No, again, I mentioned to both Shira and Jova a famous moment that I do know, where he's genuinely struggling to find a Pokemon to use where the enemy is clearly weak to electricity type, and we get this overly long gag where Ash is thinking, Pikachu gets aggressively pissed, then slaps him, and then goes himself into the ring. My point is that I do know how worse it can get,
Yeah.
Like I said, it's mostly about taking control of the other dragon. Sure, you can make an argument about the morality, because the dragon asks to Ash what is his either ideal or truth, and Ash weaponizes his desire to make Victini go see the ocean like he promised to him. That's a nice gesture overall, but like I said, it's more the fact that this conflict clearly was built for someone else, like Damian's sister. I'm sorry, and either that or don't bother to say he's related to some of the other characters, just saying. But anyway, that's it for me. So, what's next, Dedge?
The Mewtwo War, best character in the movie.
Okay, Shiroi?
There are a couple that I think work for this, but I'll go with the one that I don't think people are gonna pick, Victini, because we finally have basically a special Pokemon that isn't an obnoxious piece of shit and is actually helpful.
Yeah.
No, I'm not referring to anyone in particular. Why do you ask?
Like, I guess the closest we got to this was Jirachi, but Jirachi had more of a bond with Max and was more of a fairly blank slate. Sure, had the wishes thing, but yes, you can definitely tell the more connection that Victini has and feel his plight.
It did feel a lot more genuine.
For me, honestly, believe it or not, Shiroi, Victini was one I was considering, but don't worry, there are others to go for. It might be the easy one, but I guess I'm gonna say Damon.
That was the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Damon is very well executed, honestly. He's an antagonist, yes, but he is far from a traditional Pokemon antagonist. His goals are completely selfless for the most part, and he's willing to accept that he's done wrong. The minute he sees that what he's doing is hurting the planet, he does try to shut that stuff down, essentially. Honestly, it kind of feels like he's only antagonistic because we need a conflict, which I'm not going to fault them for. That is kind of one of the rules of storytelling, is that in this kind of big epic, having conflict does help it. That being said, I would have probably rather had Team Rocket be the antagonist who are messing with the plan, and that's what causes everything to go chaotic. But regardless, I feel like Damon fulfilled his role very well. He may not always be in the right, but he's someone who has his heart in the right place the whole time, which I do very much appreciate. He never really falters as a character. Despite the many flaws of this movie, Damon was handled exceedingly well. So yeah, Damon for me.
Dedge?
What's the that Golem Pokemon?
Golurk, damn it, I was going to pick him.
Yeah, because man, he fought one of those dragons like a champ.
We didn't mention much during the synopsis because these scenes are not particularly important, even if they're present. But yes, again, one cool thing about Gen 5 is that they make Golurk and they basically built the eye factor to the specific Pokemon. The idea that despite, being a massive statue, he can fly because, mech anime tropes. And also, again, this is a giant reference to Castle in the Sky, so we need an equivalent to the golems in that,
Honestly, I feel like Golurk should have been a Reggie instead, but they wouldn't have done it.
Remember that?
They
remember
couldn't
that
because they
Gen
knew
5,
it would drive Shiroi insane.
Remember also that Gen 5 wanted to do the whole thing, let's distance ourselves from the other generations, but not by not making, any Pokemon that is a direct evolution or pre-evolution with others.
Hey, anyway, why does Amolga...
Emolga.
No, not Amolga, the water Pokemon that looks like the evolution of Love Disc.
Oh, right, the fucking pink fish.
That was a thing.
But I guess that's your pick, Dodge.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
Alright, Tio.
Well, again, any of the choices that are mentioned, are perfectly valid. So I'm gonna say instead with the Mayor Manus, mostly because when I first saw him introducing the competition between his voice actor and his appearance with the master, I was like, is he gonna be the villain eventually? But no, he genuinely consistently stays a good guy till the very end, and very openly helps everyone, including Damien. Doesn't get bothered by, the Eastern to villainy and wants to genuinely find some redemption for him. And he uses his Clean Clang and Clean Clang entire line to power up his vehicles.
That's so cool.
In the opening, there is basically a I don't know what it's basically a carousel. I think that's the name, and he uses also to power up stuff like in a flashback you can see that it's also his vacuum cleaner is powered up like that, and later on his plane. It's very an imaginative concept, for that. It's also one of the few times where CGI for Pokemon is not a punch in the eye, thanks to the Clean Clan line being relatively thin, so you don't get to see too much of imperfections. So, again, overall a good package. Alright, next up, I think it's worth seeing, Dodge, right?
Yeah.
Alright, Shiroi?
I'm taking the low-hanging fruit, any Team Rocket scene.
Completely fair.
Okay,
easy
Wait.
Yeah, fair.
You're right. Hold up. I can actually debate you on this. Look on the bright side. There is no Wobbuffet.
Honestly,
okay.
Wobbuffet did not do that much in the previous movies. The only thing that I noticed was in Temple of the Sea where his size was inconsistent, but that's it.
I mean, they're just kind of annoying, but really, to elaborate, you think they're going to do something because it's probably some of the most screen time they've had in a lot of the more recent movies, at least as far as we've been watching them. And you think they're going to do something, but they don't, even when it seems like, there really should be something here. I don't know if it was cut or if they're mandated to appear. I don't know, but yeah. I think it was Jova who said it, but you could cut them out and the movie would lose nothing.
It was both my reasoning and, also Jova's. No, this is really one case where you can control X, literally their scenes, and the only thing that will change will be the slight music dissonance, but that's it. Again, the fact that they don't even interact remotely with that. Even in the previous movie with Zorak, they did something, even if we joked about it, because they did help accidentally with the airship of the bad guy. So there was something, but in this case, no. It feels generally their role was supposed to be more, but got cut away.
They could have easily worked as the antagonists because, Damon is thinks he's really doing the right thing. Even when he talks about how everything is going, he's so normal about it. There's no maliciousness there at all. They could have easily filled that role. I don't understand why they didn't.
And keep in mind, Shirai, technically what Damon did ended up being a net gain. Victini is free. He did accomplish reuniting the tribe, essentially. They got back their kingdom and castle, basically. Again, technically the only reason we were in trouble was because they started to lose the power source.
Mm-hmm. But that's it for my choice.
Jova.
This is not the best Pokemon movie, but again, to give it credit, it does a lot of things competently enough that it's hard for me to root out a truly terrible scene. I guess I'll go with, Iris and Sillin going out like chumps during the one-on-one tournament stuff, since, again, Sillin literally sent a flipping grass type. And not only that, a relatively low-level one at the point. Brock wasn't perfect, but he was more competent than that. Come on.
Alright, Dej.
I guess how Iris lost that match.
The Volt Switch debacle thing, yeah. Okay, if I have to also add mine, because I do have one, the scene at the beginning where Ash tries to save the deerlings, for a very simple reason, you know. Jova mentioned that Ash could have used a Pokemon to help him. I'm gonna one-up and say better. Just throw Pokeballs in trying to catch them. No, really, they're about to fall, you know. The surface is not that big, but it would be enough for the Pokeballs and everything. Just go the greedy route and try to catch them on your own. You know, I know that the scene is supposed to showcase about Ash's courage, which inspires Victini and gives him also the boost and everything to establish that. But I don't know, it feels contrived as shit overall. And again, because we need to uphold the status quo, that's why the characters are never allowed to use Pokeballs to permanently catch a Pokemon in these movies.
I'm surprised you didn't use that with the barriers for Victini. It's like, Ash, use the Pokeball. Transfer it to Oak's lab. There. Problem solved.
I don't remember. Well, I guess, yeah, that could have happened.
I'm genuinely surprised.
At that point,
none of you said that.
At that point, it starts to genuinely feel a bit like the Eagles should have flied the Fellowship to Mordor. I get the idea, it's way too simple to actually be effective. Alright, well, to contrast, there now there is best scene, I suppose. Shiroi.
I guess just the general antics between Victini and Ash, because they are genuinely cute. And yeah, the bond feels like a lot more, I wouldn't say fleshed out, because these are still very simple, but I don't know, it was nice to watch, I think.
Alright.
You know, I have to wonder, if Ash had added Victini to his party, would that have made him literally unstoppable for the rest of the season?
No, knowing him, he wouldn't like that.
Or there would have
and
been
so then, of course, they
would have done something akin to what Lupin III does with Gammon and make contrived reason why Victini cannot help him for that episode until the very end. Jova.
The fight scene between the legendaries, like, if there's one thing this movie did get right, it was giving us some pretty hype Pokemon fight scenes, essentially. Which, you know, you should expect from a movie, but I'll give them credit. They felt all well and good, essentially. If I were to pick, like, the whole scene, I guess the climax as a whole, basically, since you do feel the weight. Like, this is some of the best that they've used CGI in these movies, because the minute they pull that sword out of the mountain, you feel the weight, size, and scope of it. And with it culminating in Victini doing a heroic sacrifice, like, especially with us essentially going to space, holy cow, to save the world, it's just all well and good there. Admittedly, it's a bit more for the action than the story that I give it, but all in all, it's something that's done well.
Edgy.
Well, I won't steal yours because I'm sure it's related to God work. How Ash summons Victini by attempting to eat the macarons. I was like, nah, just kidding. Here you go.
It's
like that.
It's potentially stupid, but it's really cute nonetheless.
Yeah.
Anyway, as for me, again, I would have picked Ash and Victini's bonding because, again, despite my gripes with the movie, I genuinely like that. It really feels what the bonding with Celebi should have been, for just one example. It's more akin to what Max goes with Jirachi, but I think there is a better connection, you know, in this case. So I genuinely do enjoy it. But again, since that was picked, yeah, I guess I'm gonna go with Golurk, since I did not pick him as best character. Again, much like with Regigigas, the true MVP of the movie, doesn't bother to collect the glory, does the job that he's tasked to do, you know, gets thanks from his trainer, genuinely, and that's it. It's again, overall, it's all in good fun. Anyway, that leaves us to final thoughts and score. Let me just start just to trend set a bit. This movie is on paper perfectly fine if you just watch it without too much context behind it. However, I would argue it's one case where the final script needed not necessarily a rewrite, but at least not a revision. Something that someone should have, an editor probably should have seen it and notice some of the more obvious issues, unless, much like he said in these cases, unless it had already happened and what we got at the end was the final version, which I dread to think otherwise how much this movie would have been in early stages. Who knows? That's just speculation. The scale is properly built for the movie, even with the CGI. It's not too much on your nose, but it gives you the scope of his movie. It definitely showcase why it would have been made on the big screen, regardless of the versions, And the bonding that Ash goes with Mythical in this is genuinely wholesome enough for you to believe in, compared to the more cardboard or annoying Mythical that we've seen in previews. And that's not mentioning how fucking racist Bew was. Don't think I forgot that. Again, however, the movie is hampered by glaring plot moments that come around during the climax, mostly about resolving things quickly by tying Ash to yet another prophecy, and having the main Mythical solving a problem that should have been able to solve a long time ago with the information that the movie had told us. Either these things should have been completely reworked or slightly altered so they would have felt more justified. As they are in the movie, I personally believe they do not work as the movie makers want them to. But that is to say, the movie is still very enjoyable, the score is fine for the most part. I still don't like the usual pop songs. I know that during the montage there is a remix of the black and white opening, from what I understand, but I kind of preferred how the Zorak movie had used the ballad in the credits. I kind of wish we had something similar going on. Another thing that we forgot to mention, the mother and daughter duo that started appearing in the Lucario movie are once again making a cameo in this, so their journey continues as well. So, at the end of the day, I'm giving this one a 6.5. It's perfectly fine, slightly above sufficient, but the problems do drag it down considerably. And however, again, don't let me discourage, see potentially either version of the movie, from my recommendation, especially because after the scene of the movie, I was given the impression that because of the quality of the anime, the Unova movie would have suffered and being complete garbage as a result. So seeing that this is not a trash fire is actually giving me good hope, and we'll see if the next two movies tied to this gen will be the same or not. Shiroi.
Wow, that's definitely a sign of things to come, isn't it?
No. It's not about the quality. It's just about the great terror that's gonna happen in the next movie.
We'll see. But yeah, I actually enjoyed this one. Not my favorite, but it was nice to again have Ash have a bond with a mythical Pokemon that doesn't suck. I actually like a lot of the characters, Damon in particular. They could have done something different for antagonists, like I said, because like Damon genuinely thinks he's helping. But yeah, like I don't know. The new side characters, oh, that's a terrible start. They're not really side characters, considering I'm talking about Ash's friends. They shouldn't be giving that impression. But like, I don't know, they seem fine. I really like Iris's design. She's very cute.
Oh yeah.
Yep, Team Rocket were useless. I forgot they were there most of the time until like the brief 10 seconds they popped up every so often. So I feel like I could just ignore them and still enjoy the movie. Like they didn't really hamper the experience, despite the complaint that I have about them. But yeah, this one was very cute. I did enjoy it quite a bit. I think it's a 7 for me.
Right then. Java.
I was originally going to give this a 6.5 since I wasn't feeling it as much. That being said, reflecting on it now, I gave Rise of Darkrai a 6, and I feel like where this movie is somewhere in between the likes of Rise of Darkrai and something better like Giratina and the Sky Warrior, essentially, whereas it has enough going for it that I can consider it good. It doesn't do anything as stupid as, say, Rise of Darkrai does that keeps it from being good. At the same time, though, it doesn't have any of the heights that, say, something like Giratina and the Sky Warrior did, Which, mind you, that movie is not the most spectacular either, but I do feel like it had a bit more bigger stuff to it, which is ironic since technically the stakes weren't as big there as they are here, since it's yet another world-threatening disaster, but something about Guillotine and the Sky Warrior felt more climactic. That being said, this movie does handle its antagonist extremely well, to the point where I even wonder if we should even really truly call him an antagonist. On the other hand, it does fall into some pitfalls, whereas, again, when you get down to it, all Victini really needed to do was believe in him, and since he's a Pokemon that literally grants victory, it's a bit hard for him not to believe in himself. And I feel like they could have tried to maybe explain some of his mannerisms a bit more. Now, to be fair, he couldn't just tell them what to do because he can't speak English. Again, thankfully, unlike Darkrai. That being said, like Tio, I do think, though, that this gives me a good feeling for the movies to come instead of a bad one. It's just nothing, well, I don't want to say nothing spectacular, because it does do some things great. It's just that it feels like it all evens out to feel like an experience. Just one that coasts on right through. That being said, I'm going to go above the 6.5 since I feel like it did earn that other half of the point by actually giving a conclusion that felt very good, satisfying, and not overly sappy in a way. So, in the end, I'm going to give it a 7. Edge.
The gimmick just kind of feels pointless, and I'm glad they never did it again. It's like, okay, sure, one-time thing, alright.
I'm guessing they were testing it, but I'm guessing it didn't make them as much money as they hoped, and that's why they didn't do it.
Maybe.
This movie is fine. Kind of felt like it had a slow start, but what really carries it is like the backstory behind Victini and the people and the tribe. I generally forgot their English names. Vale? People of the Vale?
The people of the Vale, yeah.
And I do find it funny that they live on a sword castle. And like, yeah, it's also crazy to me that this is the only time we actually see an animated version of Reshiram versus Zekrom in anything. I'm like, man. Also, isn't Reshiram supposed to be a girl?
Again, remember, much like we mentioned, for Gen 4, despite Jova's insistence, the Gen, unless stated specifically like with Latios and Latias, the legendaries and mythical are to be treated as genderless.
Okay, alright. But overall, it was fine. Kind of, like, one of the... We've seen much worse. So I'll just give it a 6. Man, who knows? I'll go back to this and feel like this was actually a lot better. So I was like, sure. And so, which gives us the total of 26.5. 0.5.
Which means that this actually stacks up number 7, just between the tie of Jirachi which make King letters out of the gate, and Yokai Watch the movie.
At 17th place, Digimon the movie was 6.5. 16th, Legend of Thunder with a 9. 15th, Pokemon Heroes at 13. 14th, Celebrating the Force of the Forest with 17 points. 13, Mastermind of Mirage Pokemon. I feel like something was wrong there. Tied for 12th, Rise of Darkrai, Garantina, and the Sky Warrior with the 22 points. At 11th, Mewtwo returns with 22.5 points. Number 10, The Power of One, 23. Number 9 is tied for Mewtwo Strikes Back and Destiny Deoxys with 25. Number 8, Jirachi Wishmaker is tied with Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Team Go-Getters Get Out of the Gate with 25.5. Number 7th, our latest one, which is the Victini Black and White movie, 26.5. Number 6 is the Yokai Watch movie, 28.5. Number 5, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea at 29. Number 4, Arceus and the Jewel of Life with 29.5. Number 3, Zoroark and the Master Evolution, 33.5. Number 2, Spell of the Unknown, 34.5. And number 1, our king, Lucaria, the Mystery of Mew with a perfect 40. Nothing has changed.
Truly.
Yay!
Yep.
Yes.
Very
It's a 39.
You know, the funny thing is that Arceus would actually be higher. It only got held back because Shiroi double-docked it for some reason.
There are no absolutes in life, Dej. You better learn that. Alright,
So, yeah.
where are we going next?
It's the Three Musketeers in quadrupedal form versus a very angry ice dragon. Will Ash and company survive the frozen chills of the English voice actor for the main mythical unicorn? Tune in next time for Kuren versus the Sword of Justice and find out.
See you for that.
Yeah.
Yay!
Ominously enough, thanks, Dej.